less conversation, a little more action. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more fighting, a little less spark. A little less fighting, a little more spark. Close your mouth and open up your heart, and baby, satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby.
And I just got off the phone with the DNA specialist out of Arizona. He says he believes Eliza is Elvis's half-sister and that Elvis is still alive. He says the proof is there. DNA evidence doesn't lie. In the studio, Lauren Lee, Fox 13 News.
I get lonesome sometimes. I get lonesome right in the middle of a crowd.
Are you lonesome tonight?
Elvis Aaron Presley is gone, but he's definitely not forgotten. An American legend whose myth has grown tenfold since his death, the king is worshipped with vigils to his final resting place. But there are some who believe that Elvis is resting somewhere else.
People ask me all the time where I'm living, and naturally I can't say, but it's a good place to hide.
Could Elvis Presley still be alive? Could he have hoaxed his own death? Author Gail Brewer-Giorgio has a story that will make you wonder.
It's an incredible story. You know, well, what is it? Oh, she can prove Elvis is alive. Well, I'm not really doing that. You know, I'm asking a lot of questions.
Gail's saga began in 1977 when she wrote the novel Orion. Her character Orion was loosely based on Elvis, but in her story, Orion fakes his death to escape his prison of fame. Prior to publication, her manuscript made its way to Nashville, and Sun Records brought her character to life with a masked singer they called Orion. His voice was incredibly familiar.
I was getting a lot of very unflattering calls, too, of people saying, are you trying to perpetuate a hoax, you know, with the singer Orion? I said, all I did was write, I sat down one day and wrote a book of fiction. That's all.
Gail didn't sue Sun Records for borrowing her character. It was 1981, and Elvis mania had expanded. While the Presley estate was pulling in more millions by the year, Gail and Sun Records were priming for success with an Orion movie deal. But suddenly, something went wrong. Gail's newly released novel disappeared from shelves. Orion the singer disappeared, and fans called Gail wanted to know why. Others called to say Gail was too close to the truth.
I'm like a Mississippi bullfrog sitting on a hollow stump.
I heard from him about 3 or 4 weeks ago, yeah. I was hoping to hear from him again, but sometimes, you know, everybody in the world's trying to find him except the major. I'm the only person that believes that he's alive.
The idea that Elvis might be alive seemed far-fetched, to say the least. But as Gail attempted to resurrect her novel Orion from oblivion, she found herself drowning in the mystery of Elvis and the questions that were not answered.
2020 did an hour show on the cover-up in the death of Elvis Presley. There were many things that Geraldo Rivera brought out. The autopsy, the remains being destroyed, all official documentation missing from the files, and there's a list of them.
Why was no police investigation made into his death? Why was there no medical effort toward determining the cause of his death? Why were fans insisting that the body they viewed was not Elvis? For Gail, whose fiction now seemed strangely true, the writing was on the gravestone. Elvis's middle name, Aaron, was misspelled with 2 A's rather than 1.
And I thought, now why would a man deliberately misspell the most famous name in the world? It just didn't make sense.
I had been looking frantically for several albums. They're on the bottom, of course.
Today, Elvis artifacts are worth their weight in gold. Elvis 56 is making big bucks for media home entertainment. Fans comb the world for collector's albums, including this Jerry Lee Lewis album. Before his death, Elvis claimed to have recorded with Jerry. Sun Records now claims the voice is Orion's.
Listen to me, Jerry. They don't know what you're talking about. You keep on talking and trash. A gal's gonna throw you out. It wouldn't happen with me.
And definitely his nose was not pug. It was
There
very,
seemed no end to this mystery. When a woman from Memphis appeared at Gail's door last spring claiming to have a tape of Elvis recorded in 1981, Gail was amazed.
It's been enjoyable, but it's been a constant battle growing beards and this and that to keep from being recognized.
On the 30-minute cassette of edited phone conversation, Elvis talks about hiding and growing beards, things Elvis prior to 1977 would never have said.
I'm not completely in hiding now, you know. I mean, I'm seen by people all the time. As far as appearing nationally, I think it would be silly, to say the least, to get back into something that's taken me this long to get out of.
To verify the tape, Gail had it analyzed by a voice print expert who concluded that the voice was indeed Elvis Presley's. There is no method of determining the date it was recorded, so for Gail, it's just another piece of the puzzle.
I don't know where it's going to go. Every day I come up with new information. Every day I wonder if I'm even doing the right thing. And then I think about Orion. That was my novel, and that suffered, and that should not have occurred. There's no way for me to even get my book back out unless I tell the story of what happened.
If Elvis Presley is alive, it would be the hoax of the century. Regardless, there will always be someone out there to keep Elvis on the comeback trail, and those who believe that Elvis lives.
I said, honey, if you don't tell anybody, I said, I won't. And right then and there in the supermarket, she started crying. And I said, honey, don't you cry.
Is your heart filled with pain? Shall I come back again? Tell me, dear, are you lonesome tonight?
It's a strange thing, you know.
Behind the story of this Elvis Presley controversy, whether he's alive or dead. Our next guest is Kelly Burgess. Kelly, well, you've got quite a background. Detroit News, and tell us something about yourself.
Well, for 10 years I was an editorial assistant, feature writer, and sometimes columnist on the staff of the Detroit News.
And there came a time when you left Detroit News. And
Yeah, I left the Detroit News last year, and since then I've been writing for national magazines.
you have an article out now, right?
Right, I have an article in this month's issue of Skin Diver magazine.
Now, I understand that you actually talked to Elvis. This is great. Tell us about it. How did you ever even think of trying to find him? Where did you find him? Well, let's start with how did you get there? Take your little trip that you took me on today. It was interesting.
Okay. First of all, unfortunately, I was never an Elvis fan. I never had the opportunity to see a concert. I never owned a record. And when he died, I felt very bad, but it just kind of passed, and I never gave it a second thought until this summer. I don't know if any of you had access to the Michigan newspapers. There were several sightings of him in Michigan, and that's where I'm from, Troy, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. And about the same time, I read Gail Giorgio's book, Is Elvis Alive? And I became quite intrigued by the research that she had uncovered. And then the more I read about the sightings in Kalamazoo, Michigan, it was a challenge. As a reporter, it was a challenge to me. So one day around the first week in August, I told my 22-year-old son, I said, let's go to Kalamazoo today. I went totally expecting to find nothing. I had heard about the look-alike, and when we arrived in Kalamazoo, I went to the Burger King, to the YMCA.
Hold on. Tell everybody what happened at the YMCA. That we can't let that get by. Come on.
I went into the YMCA and spoke to the director of the fitness center, and I said, does Elvis Presley work out here? And he said, just a minute, I'll have to check the roster.
I think that's great.
Which he did.
Nonchalant as can be.
He came back and he said, no, Elvis Presley does not work out here.
Go ahead.
So let me tell you first, there is a look-alike running around Kalamazoo creating an uproar. And many people have seen him. He hangs around the Burger King. He goes into the supermarkets. He could be spotted driving the car. I've even heard that he throws parties and invites people and hands out T-shirts. That is not Elvis Presley.
Where Where'd you find Elvis Presley?
I went to an old hotel in Kalamazoo. It's on the main street. Now, Kalamazoo is a small college town, very antiquated buildings. So I went to this hotel, which was built in the 1890s. There is a renovation underway there now, and it's being converted from an old hotel into an office complex. 3 gentlemen bought the hotel in 1985.
Where did you find Elvis? Where did you
Do you want to hear
Elvis? Let's get to Elvis.
Do you want to hear the details? Do you want to hear the mystery behind
maybe
it?
we can go back after. Well, where did you find Elvis? Like, that's what I want to know.
I have to tell you the details first.
You have to, huh?
Right.
You're going to take me on this little trip, but I'm anxious. I want to know where you found Elvis. I think that's it. Okay.
All right, I went into the building with my son.
Yes.
We started surveying. There's a 5-story building with an atrium elevator. I started surveying every floor. And I had 3 encounters with security guards.
Where did you find out? No, go ahead, tell us more.
Okay, I was not intimidated by the guards. I mean, they practically told me to leave the building. They said, you're not allowed in here. So then my next step was to go into some of the offices. There are several tenants doing business in that building. I went into the offices. I went into 4 offices asking for Elvis Presley or John Burroughs. They all looked at me quite incredible. I mean, these business people, and I'm asking for Elvis Presley. And at one point, some of the people said, well, Elvis is not here, but we've seen his illegitimate son, Elvis Presley Jr., which later turned out to be a joke. So the last office I went into was on the off the main floor in the lobby. And I spoke to the receptionist and asked the same question. And she said, just a moment, I'll get my manager. So the manager came out, and I was speaking to him about Elvis, and he seemed quite interested and asked my reason for being there. We had talked about 5 minutes, and I had my back to the office door, and he said, suddenly, he said, there's the man you want to see. I turned around, and Elvis was standing there, and it was almost I felt as if lightning had struck in the room.
You're there.
It happened.
It's Elvis. Tell us about it. That's what happened then.
His presence was overwhelming, and my son was standing there also, and he felt it too. He later told me. Now, mind you, I've been a reporter. I have seen and worked on all kinds of stories, incredible stories. But for the first time in my life, I was stunned. I did not know what to say. He took his finger like this, and he motioned for me to come out into the lobby. And I followed him out there. And he leaned against the balcony, and he started shaking his finger at me like this, and he said, "What are you doing in this building bothering the tenants? I will not have this." He was very angry, very. And I said, well, I'm with the Detroit News, and I'm doing a story on Elvis. I do not care if you're with the Detroit Star. I will not have this. And in the next moment, his mood changed entirely. He was very kind. I feel that he did not feel threatened by me. And I was not aggressive. So I started talking to him, and he did not say a word. For about 5 minutes, I asked him, I said, I started outlining some of the facts in Giorgio's book. I said, if Elvis is dead, I said, why did no one collect his life insurance? I said, why did Vernon not accept the American flag for his coffin? And he stood there and he listened. He did not say one word. And at one point, I've turned around. I was standing kind of on an angle. I turned around and I looked directly into his eyes. He had on gold-rimmed glasses, a very modified version of what he used to wear. And they were with a slight tint to him. But I looked in his eyes. I mean, he had the Elvis Presley expression in his eyes, which I think most people that knew him are familiar with. I mean, that kind of sparkle. The same shape eyes, same color eyes. And I was stunned. I mean, it was shining through what comes through all of us, that this is me. It's kind of your soul that shines through your eyes. And I said, "You have eyes just like Elvis." I said, "Are you a relative?" He said, "Nope." See, for some reason, and today I still don't know, I did not let him know that I thought he was Elvis. And I still don't know why I didn't come out and ask him. Then, after he listened to my questions and just stood there kind of with a very pleasant look on his face, kind of half smiling at times. And just before I walked away, he said, "Yeah, but it's against the law to hoax your death." And I left the building.
What?
But then I returned. Should I talk about that? When I returned?
What did you return for?
To take a picture and...
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's time now to find out what Elvis Presley looks like today. Kelly, everybody's on the edge of their seats. They're waiting to hear you describe Elvis Presley when you saw him in August of this year, 1988. Kelly, what does Elvis Presley look like?
He was about 6 foot. He maybe 195 pounds, still with a small pot belly. He looked real good. He had a very thick head of white hair without sideburns. His hair was kind of done up in a kind of a boyish haircut. His same mouth, same high cheekbones. I mean, it was Elvis. Anyway, I followed him into the construction office, and he sat down at his desk, and he put his head down. He still didn't. He spoke very little in the short time that I saw him. And I thought he was looking for a pen to give me so I could write my number down, and evidently he didn't find one, and I didn't find one, so I ripped out a deposit slip from my checkbook and handed it to him. And he said, "All right, Kelly," and I left. And after that, I did get several hang-ups and hold-ons on my answering machine. It was quite an experience. I will never forget it the rest of my life.
I wouldn't think you would.
I mean, his presence was just electrifying.
Like everybody else has been
Yes.
talking about. You knew it was him, the vibrations and everything that goes with it.
Right.
It was Elvis. What a great story. Kelly, I understand that you're writing a book.
Yes, I am.
What's it going to be about?
It's going to be about Elvis Presley from 1977 to 1988.
You want to tell us what he's been doing for the past? How
Yeah.
about giving us some inside information?
No, I'm sorry, I can't do
Oh,
that.
boy. There you have the story. Elvis is alive and well in Kalamazoo, Michigan. At least he was in August of 1988, according to Kelly Burgess.
Elvis Presley never died. And what's more, he's about to come out of hiding. Charles Ruggieri has this follow-up report.
These women are members of a California Elvis fan club. They recently came in contact with this man, Steve Chances, a promoter out of Florida. The women say Chances shares a feeling they've had since August 16, 1977, that Elvis did not die, that he went underground to escape fans who would not leave him alone. Chances says he wrote a book called Elvis, Where Are You?, placed ads in Country Music magazine, and that a man he calls Civil Nora, Elvis Aaron, spelled backwards, contacted him and said he was considering coming out of hiding. The women say they've heard all the imitators and are almost convinced. This is Elvis's voice.
These skeptics thought you in the first place. I think you guys are crazy myself, so that don't mean anything. But you can't please everybody all the time, and if it makes people happy to hear my voice and to know I'm living, then that makes me happy.
Today, the women visited Memphis State Speech and Hearing Center, where Dr. Walter Manning agreed to run spectrographs, voice prints, and compare the voices of Civil Nora and Elvis. imitation fool you?
Well, it can often fool the individual listening to it. In some of the studies that have been done, the people sound the same perceptually, partly because the listener tends to fill in the gaps, and I think, want it to sound like Rich Little or whoever he might be imitating, for example. But once you look at enough samples acoustically, you can usually, not always, you can usually see some differences.
Dr. Manning says the spectrograph process takes a while, but he should have the results in a few days. We'll have a follow-up report. Charles Retieri, Channel 13, Eyewitness News.
Well, let's turn to sports. Charlie B. Watson.
Penny, the debate over whether Elvis is alive or dead is alive, and all too well here in the small Virginia town of Moneta. Now, it appears a group of individuals here have formed what they call the Presley Commission, who, much in the spirit of the Warren Commission, are looking into the alleged death of Elvis Presley. And today they've agreed to make their findings public, exclusively to all of us, at a current affair.
This guy is as serious as a heart attack, or in this case, a fake heart attack. Phil Akinson heads the Presley Commission, and in his briefcase, the toils of 2.5 years of gathering all the facts surrounding the alleged death of Elvis.
So you got the goods?
Yeah, I got it right here.
And the commission's findings based on those blue suede clues?
After 2.5-year investigation, the Presley Commission has found that Elvis did fake his death and is alive. Yes, question?
Are you sure about that?
We're very sure, yes.
Phil and the commission contend that due to threats from organized crime, Presley was forced to orchestrate an elaborate scheme, the ultimate escape trick, and convince the world he was dead.
We found that through a review of the documents and the information that we had looked at, that the man on the bathroom floor was not Elvis Presley, that it was in fact a young man who had died of complications from multiple sclerosis 3 weeks prior.
So did Elvis allegedly whack this kid?
No, there's no indication of wrongdoing or criminal intent.
They just happened to keep his body around for a few weeks?
Yeah, it was kept on ice.
On ice.
Which brings us to another finding.
Dead men don't sweat.
You sure about that, too?
We're very sure.
The Presley Commission believes it was not Elvis in that casket, but a wax dummy, as a cousin of Elvis reportedly told them he saw perspiration on his brow.
The commission did conduct tests on a wax figure to determine the validity of that.
This I had to see. So with the help of a nearby bait store's ice machine and a wax figure in the shape of a candle, we conducted a scientific test.
George, as you can see, there's condensation and dampness on the wax figure that indicates that the wax figure in the coffin would have been sweating very similarly.
Amazing.
Anyway, back at the press conference, I was wondering about the rest of the commission.
Where is everybody?
They preferred that their identities not be known.
All right, I'll buy that. So we went out to find out what another Elvis authority thought, only we couldn't find any. So we settled for this giant colossal woman who hand-built this mini Graceland in nearby Roanoke.
Is Elvis alive or dead?
He's dead.
Okay, thanks.
I'd be the last one in the world to say that Elvis was still alive. You know, let the guy alone. But then again, there were some disturbing facts that came up.
You could put us all out of work.
We did find, however, one commission advisor, Bill Beanie, who runs the Elvis is Alive Museum, just a hop, skip, and a jumpsuit outside St. Louis.
This is quite an experience.
Bill has been a great advisor to this commission.
This is our funeral room. We have recreated the casket of Elvis.
I find him to be very credible and a very upstanding individual.
The truth is that the king is alive and well.
Well, the Elvis Commission's findings may have been announced up in Virginia, but that report really hit home down here in Lantana, Florida. You see, this is home to the Weekly World News, that esteemed publication that initially broke the story that Elvis faked his own death. Eddie Klontz and Sal Iavone are the Woodward and Bernstein of the original Elvis is Alive story.
Weekly World News broke the story in May of 1988. It's been 6 years, 17 Elvis is Alive covers since, and I think it is substantiation of what we already knew. To our readers, it's old news.
What's your favorite Presley song?
Mine happens to be You Don't Have to Say You Love Me.
And you don't have to say you believe him, as Phil packed his bag and headed back out into a doubting world, where most folks don't exactly put much stock in his commission's findings. Then again, he says there is at least one person out there who knows he's right. Baby.
"29 years ago this month, in August 1977, Elvis Presley was found dead in the bathroom at Graceland. Now a website called ElvisWanted.com has been set up, offering a $3 million reward to anyone with proof Elvis really never left the building.
Topping our showbiz news today, a multi-million-dollar reward is now being offered to anyone who can prove that Elvis lives. That's right. Adam Muskowitz is making a documentary called The Truth About Elvis.
Why Elvis didn't rest in peace in tonight's Insider In Depth.
The alleged plot is outlined in The Truth About Elvis, a new documentary out next year, and at www.elviswanted.com.
The movie is scheduled to come out next year, right near the 30th anniversary of his death, so we can see how it all unfolds.
A documentary filmmaker is marking the anniversary by rolling out a slick website and a billboard touting a multi-million-dollar reward.
For everybody who can tell you that Elvis is alive, there's one other person right there to tell you you're crazy, and then there's no way the guy's dead.
People have been searching for Elvis in Kalamazoo for decades now. Finding him could earn you $3 million, though, so maybe not so crazy.
One man's on a quest to find out if the king is still alive.
Showbiz Tonight's A.J. Hammer has that and more in our entertainment report.
Some people still believe the real Elvis lives among us. Now a documentary filmmaker is prepared to pay handsomely for proof.
Wanted Elvis, dead or alive, for $3 million. No joke. The filmmakers of the documentary The Truth About Elvis are offering up some major moolah to anyone who can determine what they are calling the biggest myth in the history of pop culture.
Leela says she spotted him last week. Really? Yeah. That was done at Santa Monica. Done at $3 million.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. I like it.
Long live the king. That's it for us. Until next time, thanks for watching.
The man's dead, and leave him lay in peace.
Oh, okay. Wait. Yeah, come on in. We'd like to take pictures of handicapped people.
Our contention is that on August 16, 1977, Graceland buried a wax figure, not Elvis Presley. We have documentation on the wall that would bring this out. Gene Smith, a cousin to Elvis who was very close to him, stated that when he viewed the body, he couldn't believe it. One sideburn was sticking out. There was glue that had melted and ran down on the head. The air conditioner was in the casket blowing cold air. And that when he looked at the body, he said to the father, Elvis's father, "What do we have here? This is not Elvis." And Vernon Presley, whose picture we have right over here, said, "No, Elvis is upstairs. He is not in the casket. We were afraid the fans might desecrate the body." And Gene Smith noted, he said, "I was a pallbearer with the air conditioning in the casket because it was August in Memphis and the wax was about to melt. That's the reason they air conditioned it." He said it took 10 of us to carry the casket out to the hearse, and he said it was so heavy I fell down. We have the picture of Elvis in the casket. There was only one picture that was ever taken, and it was up here. The National Enquirer paid a cousin to photograph the casket, had a flyer on with a camera in it.
Hey, listen, we're going to cut the tape. Leave it on, though. Lori, come over here. She's an actress. She does some of the stuff in our show. We want to show how people are upset about Elvis not being around. So she's going to act just for a few seconds. Okay. Real. She's going to act real, like she's wailing over the, yeah, right. She's really upset about Elvis dying. Now, Laurie. He's probably still alive. We'll probably see him again someday. Mr. Beanie believes that he's still alive. Okay, that's enough. Thank you, Laurie.
Elvis, after his death was, after his alleged death, was buried in, he was not buried at Graceland. He was taken over and put in a little memorial garden place, and his mother's body was moved and put there with him in this interment. There were some that tried to break in. They wanted to prove that Elvis wasn't there. Vernon, the father, became very apprehensive.
You got any more lights in here? It's kind of dark now.
No, we had this purposefully soft, and he may not be able to film it. It may not be enough light.
Well,
hold the door open.
Wait a second. I'll use. Well, this is kind of crude, but I can do this here. I'll use my Bic lighter. It's all right. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Here we got my Bic lighter. It's, our big light is being fixed now, so we have to use the Bic lighter. What is this?
This is the audio of Elvis's voice. I will. It was supposed to be running. We're supposed to keep it running 24 hours a day, but we've had a
malfunction of the equipment here.
We had a heavy day of people coming through.
Hey, can we talk to some of the people that came to the Elvis Museum? That'd be nice, just for a second. Hi, what's your name?
Jen.
Excuse me? What's your name?
Donna.
Uh-huh. Where are you from?
Donna.
What?
Donna.
Oh, okay, great, wonderful. Yeah. Hold on, this lady wants to talk to us here. Yeah, hi, what's your name? Yeah, it's real nice. Well, they're not really wanting to talk right at the moment. Well, how are you enjoying the Elvis Museum?
Now this room, if a person wants to know why Elvis Aaron Presley disappeared, this room, we believe, contains the answers. This room we call the FBI DEA room. This room contains information that most people have no inkling about in the life of Elvis Presley. Over here on this wall, we have a picture from the National Archives in Washington, D.C.
Oh, President Nixon.
President Nixon making Elvis Presley a narcotics agent at large. This was in 1970.
We were in this town before we came to the Elvis Museum, and there was a few people that were kind of mad at you. Do you know anything about that? We're with some townspeople from Wright City, Missouri. What do you know about that Elvis Museum?
I think it's a little retarded.
What do you know about Mr. Beanie?
I don't know. They know. He's crazy. He's crazy. Not me. I heard that he was on drugs.
He's crazy, man. He thinks he's still alive when he's not.
I want to ask you about the Elvis Museum.
Just any comments, and we just send you not being here.
And we wanted to ask you what you know about the Elvis Museum.
I don't know a whole lot other than what I read in the paper.
Hey, hi. How you doing? We want to ask you a question about that Elvis Museum, about that guy that owns the Elvis Museum. What do you know about him?
Don't comment.
Could you tell us about the Elvis Museum?
What would you like me to tell you about the Elvis?
About the guy that runs it.
Mr. Beanie?
Mr. Beanie.
I've known him for a few years, and he seems to be a landmark in Wright City.
Hey, what can you tell us about the Elvis Museum?
Not much. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh. How about you?
You're kidding, right?
No, tell us about it, please. We went from
nothing about it, except Mr. Beanie.
What about Mr. Beanie?
That says it all.
We're wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the Elvis Museum or anything about its owner. Just you know, we went down to the hair salon. We went down to the store down there. And everyone keeps their mouth real quiet about
Where are you from?
St. Louis. So it was in the Post, right? The Elvis Museum. So we decided to come out and kind of yeah.
How far can we go before it's slandered?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Give me the microphone.
Here. This, it's like we went into the hair salon. There's this little kid. There's this little kid on the ground playing with the toys, and then the beauticians all of a sudden got really quiet. So it's like we just wanted to know how it's affecting the town.
How the Elvis Museum? Well, it's an embarrassment. The guy that owns it's an embarrassment.
What is the secret behind the Elvis Museum and Bill Beanie? Well, we couldn't find out. But we might go back there to give you the story behind the story. Until then, there's a big question mark. What is the mysterious secret that we can't find out? I don't know.
And welcome back, everybody, on this night of our focus on Elvis Presley. Sky Fox, appropriately enough, is at the Hard Rock Cafe. Maybe you've been inside there to see some of that wonderful Elvis memorabilia that's aboard the Hard Rock. All righty, welcome back, everybody. Tonight, the incredible follow-up to this story that has all of Cleveland talking. A doctor does claim that Elvis Presley is still alive, and he says he can prove it. Well, tonight we take him up on that challenge.
Yeah, he's already shared intimate secrets of Elvis's alleged fake death. Tonight, Fox 8 News reporter Suzanne Stratford tells us what evidence experts have to say now about the doctor's incredible claims.
That's right, because the doctor is so credible, he's easy to believe, and he does claim that Elvis is in fact his patient. He already told us about the magazines and the movies that seem to hold clues and support his claims. But we wanted real evidence, so we put his claims to the test.
This is really for real. If he wishes that I take a lie detector test or submit to any type of examination, I would be more than happy to do that.
Lie detection is Al Sterwich's specialty.
It goes up in the crescendo.
As a certified audio stress analyst and a vice president for Diogenes Incorporated, Al has analyzed thousands of people. He tested Linda and Dr. Hinton for us.
I can say that within about a 98% degree of certainty, Dr. Hinton and Linda Felix Johnson were telling the truth.
These graphs represent Dr. Hinton's responses. Peaks, referred to as Christmas trees, represent truthfulness. On each question, Dr. Hinton appears to be honest.
Some of the questions I asked him, I said, is Elvis alive?
Was he truthful?
Yes.
Al asked Hinton if he wrote the book looking for money. His answer?
No, and he was very truthful on that.
After several hours of questioning, Al believes a lot more than just Hinton's sincerity.
Do you think he's alive?
Yes, I do.
Would you please welcome Jeannie C. Riley.
I want to tell you all the story about a Hartford Valley widowed wife.
What does Jeannie C. Riley have to do with this?
I didn't believe Dr. Hinton's book. I thought, bless his heart, how deluded.
But Jeannie had a change of heart, and we were there as she traveled to Kansas City to drop a bombshell on stage.
Elvis A.R.O.N. Presley, not Elvis A.A.R.O.N. Presley like is on his gravestone. Elvis was too honest a man to put his real name on a grave that he wasn't in. He ain't in it.
Riley says that she knows for a fact Elvis is alive.
I could rattle off several of the top names in the music world that see him on a fairly regular basis and talk to him all the time. I'd have kept my neck in. I stuck it out tonight. There are people in Nashville right now laughing at me, saying I'm crazy. Well, I've got nothing to lose.
But at the lab, they discovered something startling.
All three samples appear to be from different individuals because each one of them has a different DNA type.
Elvis's liver tissue sample is different than Elvis's autopsy tissue sample, and neither matches Jesse.
It's over.
Or so we thought. 6 years later, Jesse's DNA has led to a landmark lawsuit in Memphis, Tennessee, filed by a woman who says not only is Jesse Elvis, but she's his half-sister.
Do you believe that Jesse is Elvis?
He has to be. There's no two ways about it. You can't fake the DNA.
All right, well, did the DNA from Jesse sent to us in 2002 match Eliza? We know it led to a landmark lawsuit in Memphis, Tennessee. Tomorrow night at 10, you will hear her story and see firsthand what she and her attorney call irrefutable proof that not only is she Elvis Presley's half-sister, but she says he's still alive. It's in court. It's in the courts right now, and you will see all of it.
You know, you
tomorrow
hear this
at 10.
stuff, and you kind of think maybe this is a little crazy, and then you see pictures, and DNA's not right, and then you're like, well, what is going on here?
I feel like Alice in Wonderland. I fell down the rabbit hole 6 years ago, and I'm still there. You know, still working my way through it.
It does plant a seed in your mind.
It does.
All right, tomorrow night at
All
10,
right.
you'll be back. Thank you, Suzanne.
The only way to know was DNA. Eliza tells us she collected samples from Elvis's family, Donna Presley, a first cousin on his father's side, and Brenda Smith, a first cousin on his mother's side. The results stunned her. According to the lab report, Eliza is biologically related to Donna Presley. Interesting, but she needed Elvis's DNA to really prove he was her dad.
I would never treat anyone without seeing them eye to eye. And it is truly Elvis Aaron Presley.
In 2002, we interviewed Kansas City psychiatrist Dr. Donald Hinton. He claimed Elvis was his patient, that he faked his death, and went by the name of his deceased twin brother, Jesse. Jesse, Dr. Hinton's patient, sent us his DNA, which we tested against several items certified as the King's, including blood-stained jeans.
Did you know Elvis? Yeah, I knew Elvis.
Nashville entertainer and friend Jimmy Velvet.
He threw a fit at Graceland one time because the car wouldn't start, and he jumped up on the hood and kicked his foot through the windshield.
The blood-stained DNA did not match Jesse, but then none of the so-called certified Elvis samples matched each other. And that's where our story ended. Until about 10 months ago when Eliza tracked us down. She had heard of our DNA tests and believed that at least one sample was from Elvis.
That was the original reason I ever tracked you down, was to test against that. I still didn't believe the whole scenario of the Jesse thing.
We sent our reports to the Paleo DNA laboratory. They determined Eliza did not match the genes, but say she did match Jesse's DNA, except not as father-daughter.
He's not your father. It seems like he's your half-brother. And I went, he's my what?
A random man who claimed he was Elvis and gave us his DNA matched Eliza as her half-brother. And he matched both sides of Elvis's family tree.
Well, how the hell does that happen that somebody you've never laid eyes on, that you didn't believe existed, is now your sibling?
Do you believe that Jesse is Elvis?
He has to be. There's no two ways about it. You can't fake the DNA.
And I just got off the phone with the DNA specialist out of Arizona. He says he believes Eliza is Elvis's half-sister and that Elvis is still alive. He says the proof is there. DNA evidence doesn't lie. In the studio, Lauren Lee, Fox 13 News.
Satisfy me, baby. Come on, baby, I'm tired of talking. Grab your coat and let's start walking. Come on, come on. Come on, come on. Come on, come on. Don't procrastinate, don't articulate. Girl, it's getting late, you just ain't went around. A little less conversation, a little more action. All this aggravation ain't satisfaction in me. A little more bite, a little less bark. A little less bite, a little more spark. Shut your mouth and open up your heart, and baby, satisfy me. Satisfy me, baby. Satisfy me, girl. Satisfy me, baby. Satisfy me, honey. Satisfy me, baby. Satisfy me, girl. Satisfy me, baby. Satisfy me, baby. Satisfy me, girl.